Hello.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm fine. You made it home safely.
I did make it home safely. Your husband seemed kind of surprised that I was going to walk home.
Here, Mark.
Yeah, I got my steps in. I got 6K walk in today, so
Good for you.
yeah.
So, Rainbow Zombies. I am trying to
Oh shit.
decide.
I'm so sorry. You
That's
asked
okay.
me
I'm trying to
holy crap.
decide
Hmm.
if it means zombies that are rainbow colored
See,
or if it means rainbows that are zombies.
zombies. I was trying to kind of figure that out too cuz
Yeah, I may need to ask for clarification on that one.
I'm sorry. You asked me to look for that shit last week and I was like, "Yeah, I'll do it." And then I didn't and I am so sorry on that.
That's okay. I also have zombie material that I made a um, shirt for my godson's older brother,
Mm.
and I was thinking of just if he just wants zombies that are rainbow colors,
Mhm.
I'm thinking about just tie dyeing that because into rainbow tie dye because it's going to be so much easier than custom printing material.
Well, I think whatever you come up with, they'll be happy with.
Oh, absolutely. I just, you know,
Wow. Holy crap. Sorry.
okay.
No, I'm sorry. No, I just saw a post from someone about the guys that I follow, Bloodbath and Beyond.
Oh, yeah, the house sharks thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
I read that.
that's
I
interesting.
haven't decided which entity is being more unprofessional and petty.
The the
Right
one
now, they're kind of tied.
you mean the one who posted the review of their review, or the fact that they then posted screenshots of the bad review of their review?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
sure either. I stay out of those
And
debates.
you get as a filmmaker, they said this in their shitty review, uh, that they're not a fan of this movie, and some people do like it. But yeah, it that got out of hand
The
fast,
the re-
unprofessional.
the response from Ron Bonk on House Sharks was unprofessional. He should have just left it instead of actually acknowledging it.
Yeah,
But I'm not sure how I feel about them posting the bad thing.
yeah. None of it was handled well. I
But
mean, you got a bad review. People get bad reviews, and live with it.
well, the guy, I understand the Bloodbath and Beyond guy's getting frustrated though because he went and started personally attacking them because they are larger guys in that, and he started ripping on their physical appearance in that, and imagine that did strike a chord, and
I imagine it did.
that's why they posted the screenshots.
I imagine that it did. However,
Yeah, it's at least he didn't like copyright strike them majorly to block the video altogether, like the one independent director did to my review. So,
that's true. Although I imagine it would have been much harder for them to copyright strike them.
well, depends on what they have in the video. So,
Yeah, and it also depends on if they were specifically approached and offered a screener.
right.
Because if they can say, "Hey, look at this email. I was asked to review this."
Well, see, that's what's funny is I was asked to review it, and then it was up for a year, and then when she was looking for distribution for the movie and was getting it from Sony Home Entertainment, just before that happened, I suddenly got a major copyright strike on my review that had been up for a year by her, and I found out later it was because she didn't like my review and wanted it not out there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but you
people
know,
are silly.
it is what it is. I
People
didn't
are silly.
I didn't debate it. I was just like, you know what? Whatever. I got like 1,458 other reviews up there.
Yeah.
How you doing, Andrew?
Good, man. You know, it's bad form to respond to a bad review.
Yes.
Yeah.
You just don't do it. I learned that when I was when Gunserific was a blog before I was even making movies. I was one of the first. I was one of the first blogs to like actively review micro budget, you know,
Yeah.
cult film and all that. I was getting screeners out the ass. I was the only person reviewing some of these people's movies, and anytime someone would write me mad about a review, it just make them look like an asshole. So I remembered that when people started saying bad shit about my movies, and I never responded to a single one, because what I noticed, man, is the more you like freak out online, it takes attention away from what you made and onto you,
Uh-huh.
and that's like not what you want, right? And
Yeah, you want your work to stand on its own, and you don't want it associated with something like that.
yeah, no, man, I know you know all about that stuff that went on with Suska Sisters with Twitter and all of that. Man, I wish they would have, you know what I'm saying? Like now it's not about Rabbit, it's about Twitter, you
Mhm.
know? And I'm like, is that like, you know, publicity for Rabid? You know what I'm saying? Like, and then they talk to some like alt-right Twitter or blogger or something like that.
Yeah, an alt-right news anchor.
And then there was all these like Nazis going like, can't wait to see Rabid, can't wait to support this film. And I'm going, whoa, this isn't what it can't be what you want. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm not sure on that call of acknowledging pretty much any of that. I mean, and
You see where
they
it
have
could lead though,
they
you
have
know?
well, and the fact is they are aware they have a very devout and savage fan base in some circles, you know. So
I mean, that should have been enough. Like, you know, I was just like, I don't know that I would have flipped like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, right when my movie's about to come out.
I wouldn't have. I guess if it was me in that situation, and it's hard to say, but I guess if it was me, I would try to resolve it and such first, like, you know, work out with Twitter to get it unbanned,
Yeah.
rather than going public with it while it was banned to try to get it. I would have worked behind the scenes and then probably been able to successfully get it reinstated and then come out and say, hey, folks, here's why it was down. It got banned for this image. We worked it out with Twitter. We're back up now. Let's talk Rabid.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, it really blew up into this huge thing, which I didn't expect either. I'm just like, okay, you know, you guys aren't the first ones to get inaccurately blocked, you know, and I guess I just would have made sure it was all resolved before you come out with it rather than in the midst of it, you know, but maybe they thought that would help get it reinstated sooner, you know, or just create a new account. I don't know. I can't say in that situation. It was surprising how that blew up. And then, yeah, they went on the alt-right, and then people started slamming them for being on the alt-right program and defaming them. And then they got upset at those people. And it was all out in public, you know. It's a strange time we live in with the internet. You know, I get everybody wants, especially those who have fans and are looking for support to try to get their cause or whatever, you know, like get their account enabled. I get that, but at the same time, it's like, man, this is really turning into drama. And it's like you said, Andrew, if it doesn't die down before February or January when it gets released, people are just going to if this keeps coming up, it's going to get associated with the film. You know, if it can die down now, I think.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was coming out sooner than that. Oh, they'll be fine by February.
Yeah. It was initially, from my understanding, but then the last post I saw about it was that it wasn't going to come out till like January or February because it got an even bigger distribution or something. I forgot. I loosely followed what was going on with it because once I found out it wasn't going to be out when it initially was going to be out, which is why I was doing the Cronenberg. I was trying to do Rabid that same month the remake came out. And then I saw it got pushed out to August. I'm like, ah. And then I saw another post saying something like it might not come out till 2020 now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I mean, I've always liked them. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like, and I remember seeing Dead Hooker in the trunk. You know what I'm saying? Like, I liked them for a long time. But when I saw all that stuff, I was going like, I don't know, man, if I would do the same what they're doing. You know, like but I think by the time it is out, nobody's gonna remember any of that. They'll be in
Yeah,
good shape.
it's gonna. Yeah,
I
I
mean, I'm
think-
gonna see obviously any movie they make. So,
Mhm.
but I was just
Oh
like, ugh.
well, actually, I'm wrong. It's getting a premiere date at Fright Fest on August 26th. So, yeah, it's supposed to be at London Fright Film Festival. August 26th is when it gets premiere, but I don't think it's going to get distribution until 2020. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and how it affects that at all.
I don't think it will. It sounds like they'll be fine. I thought
Yeah.
it was coming out like soon. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was
Well,
like,
well,
whoa,
it's playing at a festival at the end of this month, but
yeah,
so I guess that is a little soon. But yeah,
not the same as like just about to hit.
no,
VOD
not
or
like it's
whatever.
coming out tomorrow. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
See, I thought
it'll.
we were closer than that. I'm like, that's not the kind of publicity I would want. But yeah, I checked the thread about from that guy and was like looking at all the, you know, like
Yeah.
all the little Nazi people talking about, I can't wait to support free speech in their film. Oh God,
Oh dear.
would you?
not what you want. No,
Plus,
no.
how confusing is that? Like, don't y'all want all women dead? You know, you're like, I don't
Although-
understand.
That'll be like if they misunderstand Watiti's new satire film coming out.
Oh, Jojo Rabbit, that movie
Yeah.
looks crazy.
That movie looks. I'm looking at it going, oh, and then I see he's playing Hitler, and I'm like, oh shit.
You know, what's crazy. When he described it, you know, like all this shit I would read, I'm like, I cannot imagine this. And I thought for sure once I saw the trailer, it would all be clear to me and I would get it. And I'm just like, I still can't believe this is like it didn't help. It made it worse. Like, why? How does this exist? But you know, I'm gonna see it. Like that looks great.
Oh, it does look great. It looks like it's going to ruffle so many damn feathers,
Good.
which it should, because it's going to ruffle the right feathers. It's going to, you know.
Fuck.
Yeah, I didn't even know about that movie, and all of a sudden I saw the trailer for it, and I'm like, "Oh shit, I gotta see this now."
I love it when like someone becomes high profile because they direct a successful studio movie and then they go make a weird ass movie next
Yeah.
with the money they got. I love when they do that. Love that.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's you know, I think that's what David Cronenberg was doing it. So,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
but yeah. So, all right. Well, guys. Yeah. I think we can get started a little early if you want.
Okay.
So,
Don, how are you?
I am well.
Okay.
I am ready for a break from work, but otherwise well.
Well, I mean, okay. Me too. Same.
I want to do more. I want to watch more movies. Damn it!
Yeah.
Don't become a critic. You'll watch a lot of movies, but none of them's gonna be what you like. The idea of choosing a movie for yourself goes away.
Exactly. I was actually told over the weekend that I should open my own bakery, and I said, "Oh God, no! Please no! That is hell."
Yep.
Yeah.
It change everything. It
Yeah.
really.
because then you won't enjoy baking because it's for work.
Exactly.
It just
You know, after I closed the coffee shop, I did not make chocolate chip cookies for 2 years.
Oh shit. Do you know? No, I mean I'm not trying to complain or anything. It's just that, you know, like movies I want to see have to take a back seat, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and like, you know, stuff I would like to write about has to take a back seat, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, but you know, also lights on and air conditioning and gas in the car is fabulous.
Well, no, at
Indeed.
least you have air conditioning. Ours froze up on us.
Oh
Shit.
no.
Yeah.
Hey, at least it's been in the 70s this week.
Yeah, it's only supposed to be in the 70s this week. We just discovered it today because I came back from my walk and I'm like, wow, it's a little extra warm in the house. Didn't notice earlier today because the air, the cool air that had been there from the night before was still okay, but now the outside was actually cooler than the inside. I walked in, I'm like, holy crap! And then my wife looked and we took a look, and yeah, it's frozen all the way up the pipe to the unit.
Oh no.
You gotta let it thaw. You gotta cut it off.
Yeah, so
That sucks.
So yeah, we gotta call the guy tomorrow and have him look, and hopefully it didn't burn out the motor. Hopefully, so.
That happened to us at our kid's birthday party one year because she's got like a springtime birthday, and it was getting like warm as fuck. And I thought, man, is it all these people in the house? You know, so you start like open the windows and stuff, and then I'm like, nope, that's not why.
Yeah, I don't think people realize. We deal with that at work occasionally. You could always tell at work when it, especially at my old job where we had air conditioning in the server room, and you could tell when the air conditioning stopped because it was like, oh man.
A lot of time just stand on top of changing out the filters, even though it's a bitch. That can like really help because 9 times out of 10, that's why it happens. Or that's why it happened to me anyway. So Andrew times out of Andrew.
Okay. Yeah. So
I'm sorry, man. I'm ready, dude.
No, it's okay. The wife walked by. She just asked who we had look at it last time, and it was Point Heating and Cooling. So I just had to verify with her. So we're all good. So yeah. So we got a fan or two. So I'm gonna get probably another fan on the way home and get the circular air going. Luckily, yeah, it's not supposed to be like a heat index of 100 and melt. So
yeah, so it's like
that was last week.
That was last week. Well, 2 weeks ago when we had nasty storms. So we had the equivalent of an inland hurricane.
I read that, man. That's crazy. I'm glad everybody's okay.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
Considering the sheer volume of damage all of Wisconsin faced, it's very impressive we didn't have more deaths and injuries.
That's true.
It really, property damage and all that, yes, sucks, but for the severity of the storms and our location where we normally don't get big storms like that, with like a span of a couple of years or whatever, it was impressive we didn't have more damage and injuries to people. So that was good. So all right, so let's get rolling. Make sure I get my notes here. I'll see. I was all set, and then I was looking at Daphne Zuniga, and so that was my problem. I got a little distracted. I'm okay now. All right. Wow, that was a Glenn sigh. Welcome everyone to the spoiler room. So glad to have you back with us as we ventured down here. And last week, we talked about our last episode, I should say. We talked about The Fly for our Welcome to Cronenberg episode. And while we did that, I'm like, let's look at the sequel that was right after that they made in 1989, and it's called aptly The Fly 2. And tonight I have with me a wonderful crew to discuss this interesting sequel to the remake of the classic film. And back in the spoiler room again to discuss the sequel, she was with us with the Cronenberg episode, The Fly. Here she is, Dawn, to talk The Fly 2. Hello, Dawn. How are you?
I'm happy to be here with you and Andrew tonight. Thank you.
Happy to have you for basically a double feature of Fly and Brundle's legacy, if you will. And next to Dawn, we have back in the spoiler room with us, it is the lovely Andrew Shearer. Hello, Andrew. How are you, sir?
What? You can't ask me shit for at least like 90 seconds to 2 minutes after Dawn says Andrew. Can't do. I'm a big fan. Mark, I told you very recently you run the best table. You run the best game. I was on a podcast with you recently on this thing that 4 guests, and it just ran like a top. And then Dawn, I just love the Fly episode. I just listened to it last week, I guess it was, or earlier this week, whenever it posted.
Mhm.
You were all talking about, oh, you know, we went off in different directions or whatever. It was great. I loved it. I'm like, I'm gonna get to talk about the Fly too. I hope they have anything close to this to say about the Fly too. But I truly enjoyed it, man. It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I'm glad to have you, especially when I had heard you were a Fly 2 fan.
Fly Girl, yes.
Yeah,
True.
Fly Girl. Yeah. You were a Fly 2 fan because it's one that you don't actually see talked about quite a bit in many circles. You see people talk about Brundlefly and the original because, of course, Jeff Goldblum, but it almost seems people forget that there's this whole other movie that followed up to that. So, Andrew, since you are a big fan of this, could you please give us the synopsis of The Fly 2 1989?
You want the plot or you want a summary of the movie?
A synopsis would be good.
What does synopsis mean?
Well, either one. You could either.
I was just
No,
playing.
no,
My
you're-
brain is still fucked up. Fly must have got it.
You got some
First-
fly brain.
First time the question was posed, must have like fused with me or some shit. All right, so The Fly 2, 1989.
Yes.
Chris Wallace, director of The Fly 2, was the special effects supervisor of The Fly 1. He is in charge of this film, and it is picks up with poor Gina Davis's character, but not real Gina Davis, giving birth to a baby of Brundlefly right before she unfortunately passes away. Brundlefly Jr., Martin Brundle, Eric Stoltz, he grows at an accelerated rate, but instead of degenerating into a gross monster, he evolves into Superfly, but not Ron O'Neal and not Samuel L. Jackson.
No.
Totally different. Oh, that was shitty. Samuel L. Jackson was never Superfly.
No, he was shocked. Yeah.
God, what a fucking asshole I am.
No, you're not. We could trim that out. We'll trim that out.
Nah, anyway, no, you don't have to do that. Anyway, so there's more gore and more vomit, courtesy of Mel Brooks, the producer.
Yes, Brooks
Yes.
Films. Gotta love it. Oh, Brooks Films, which may explain why you have old Princess Vespa in here.
That's exactly why Vespa's in it.
Mhm.
Oh, is it really? I was just taking
Yes.
a guess. Oh,
Dawn, drop it, man. Tell him.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. It was in the commentary that Mel Brooks insisted that recommended that she be in there. They didn't really think she was going to make a great leading lady, but turns out she was fantastic.
she proved them wrong. Which she was fantastic, and we have Eric Stoltz in here, and yeah, this is an interesting sequel because
Marty McFly.
Marty McFly.
Sorry.
Nice.
Sorry, Mark.
Great. Now I'm thinking of that. Hello. Anybody home in there?
Biff deserved to be puked on.
Yes, he did.
I'm sorry.
he did. No, that's quite all right. So Don, we're going to start with you. The Fly 2. We've watched The Fly. What was it like watching this right after that one? And what are your initial thoughts, your feelings with The Fly 2, 1989?
My initial thoughts, I liked it.
Mhm.
It was lighter. There
Mhm.
were small petty things that I just kind of went, "Heh." But that's my job speaking, not my fangirl speaking. But for the most part, I thought it was pretty solid. I like the details. I like the fact that they kept certain very Cronenberg themes going in this sequel.
Mhm.
The doctor issues, dad issues, and of course the gore and the practical effects.
Yes, gore and practical effects definitely are abound in this. Actually, more so than in the first one in many respects,
And-
I think.
And not to get too far ahead,
Mhm.
but where in the first one they didn't really have a villain, it was just everybody was a victim in some way.
Mhm.
In this one, everybody except for the two primary characters is a villain.
As a villain in many ways, yeah.
Yeah, so I like that shift.
Yeah, that is an interesting shift, and you could tell it is a different film. Andrew, you're a fan of Cronenberg, but you say you've actually watched this more, correct? What is it initially that kind of attracts you always to The Fly 2 more so than The Fly?
Well, The Fly 2's got a special place in my heart. Should I just say first, Don, you're right about everything all the time. I almost can't follow this. What Don said. It was so astute, and now I'm gonna be like, West Coast Video, but no, man. I was afraid of watching horror movies as a kid, and was aware of The Fly because my dad loved it because he loved the old Fly and every Fly. He's a true blue horror fan. But when I first started being able to watch horror movies, Fly 2 was relatively new on VHS. And I was like, hot damn, I'm renting it and I can do this. It was part of as it turns out. And I didn't remember that until I rewatched it. I was like, I'm remembering dialogue. I was remembering music cue. Lock, stock, and teardrops. I'm like,
Oh my God.
right before that song started, before the lyrics started, my head went to the lyrics. I'm like, oh my God, this movie must have been important to me. But I
That's
think
awesome.
Oh, thank you, Don. Thank you, Don. You recover from that for a moment. Okay, collecting my thoughts in 3, 2. So, because it was less of a gruesome, grim, downbeat story and more of like a superhero revenge kind of story, it actually, as a kid, just really kind of grabbed me in a way that was less like fear and more kind of like action, you know?
Mhm.
And I think when my dad and I watched it together, we must have freeze framed in slow motion that head crush like I don't know how many times.
with the elevator, you mean?
That was good.
Yes, which the head originally was going to be crushed by the fly's hand, but they couldn't get the effect to work. So instead, they crushed it with an evelator, aka elevator. But so to me, it just was a more fun sort of a movie. I was afraid of watching Cronenberg's Fly, for some reason. And as it turns out, of course, yes, very dark, very grim movie, very different film. But as you know, I guess you guys can kind of see why me as a kid and novice horror fan would gravitate toward part 2 more.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned it with the action, it clicked with me what this film kind of reminded me as far as relationships from part 1 to part 2. In a lot of ways, at least if anything in spirit, and I could be completely wrong here, but it reminded me a bit with the difference between Alien and Aliens.
Mhm.
You have The Fly and The Fly 2, different in tone, more action. To definitely, it's a little bit more accessible, I think, to people because it's not. I mean, granted, Aliens 2 was dark, but even still, it compared to 1, Aliens 2 was more of that sci-fi action, like what we were talking about on the Creepy Crawl channel there, Andrew. The difference between sci-fi action and sci-fi horror.
Yeah, and I don't really like Aliens, and so comparing these two.
I wasn't saying
No. I'm just saying, like, by all rights, I shouldn't like Fly 2 more than 1, but I do.
Right. Well, no, but it's as far as sequels go, this is a well-crafted follow-up, I think, to Cronenberg's. It felt some sequels feel really forced. I mean, let's face it, especially in the 80s when they were still trying to figure out how to do the damn things. That's one thing that always stuck with me with Kevin Smith. They did an interview with him or whatnot. Or not Kevin Smith, Bruce Willis. It was Bruce Willis, and they did an interview. Kevin Smith was interviewing Bruce Willis, and he made a point of, he's like, in the mid and late 80s, sequels, regularly happening was kind of a new thing for Hollywood, so they weren't quite sure how to handle sequels. But in this one, I think this is a solid follow-up to the first one.
Yeah, didn't they say, Don, I can't remember, in the commentary, did they say, like, because of the era it was made in, they had to call it Fly 2 instead of
Yes.
Return or Son of the
Yes,
Fly.
they did. They wanted to call it something else, and they kind of had to be stuck with the Fly 2 because that's how things worked. Yep.
Otherwise, they could have said, actually, Curse, well, I mean, I know they already had one, but Curse of the Fly would work really well, I think, with this film. Or,
If
They
I
made
don't
that one later.
yeah, they did.
if I don't mention it, if there's never any call to mention it at any other point in the podcast, Curse of the Fly, still my favorite Fly movie. Except for Superfly.
Except for Superfly,
But
yes.
it's not canon.
No. That's true. It is not. It's still a solid film as well. But for Fly 2, I think it's a solid follow-up. You're right. We do get not Gina Davis giving birth to the larva, which looked awesome. I mean, this movie this is coming out of the gate. We get this. Not only do we get this, but we do get return of a familiar face, don't we, Dawn?
We do. Stathis is back.
Yes, he is. The Dick.
Mhm.
He's back, but we learned that he's not as big of a dick as the other dick in the room, who is
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Anton Bartok, who runs the company, who, if you remember, in the first Fly, Bartok was the one that was financing Brundle's work. So when Brundle goes away, they take over his experiments, and they also claim rights to his offspring because it was a result of the experiment in some weird corporate way. So I thought that was interesting. Andrew, this kind of follows that kind of late 80s theme of corporations being evil, doesn't it?
Yeah, man. I mean, if you want to compare it to Aliens,
Yeah.
it's basically the same plot. No, we think about RoboCop too, also, but for real though, the Return of the Fly, the old one, right? Wasn't it about? I have not seen it in a long ass time. Wasn't it about like the people so interested in the research that they like force the Fly accident to happen again?
Yes, it's been a long time since I read it, but I watched it. But yeah, I believe that was what it was as well.
I feel like the original Son of the Fly, and the old one comes out normal, but then they like force him into the pod and put the Fly in there in order to make it happen again because they're such bastards.
Yes. And the company are bastards here, especially with the handling of Martin Brundle, who, as you mentioned, accelerates, but not only in size, but in mentality too. This guy becomes like superhuman in many ways. I mean, as far as intelligence goes, imagine kind of a Sheldon Cooper, but with fly genes that are dormant, that they're waiting to awaken. And yeah, the Bartok character, you mentioned the daddy issues, Andrew. We do have him trying to replace Brundle as Martin's dad. And Dawn, this evil corporation thing, common theme in the early 90s, would you say? Late 80s?
It's been definitely an evil corporation. You think they might have been trying to warn us about something, and as a society, we clearly haven't listened.
Not yet, no.
Oh my goodness.
All the signs are there about evil corporations, yet we seem to ignore it. And yeah. And Bartok is like the culmination of all of those ideas of bad guy. I mean, this guy, he tries to manipulate Martin. He's got a couple of hanger-ons, his minions, who, man, Don, are they like the most disgruntled doctors you've ever seen?
I was trying to figure that out as I was watching this, and then I was hoping that something would be mentioned during the commentary about why the personalities were made that way, aside from just to ensure that everybody except for Martin and Beth were evil. But yeah, the whole reason Martin ends up going on this revenge thing isn't because something happens to his dad, is because he's been systematically abused his whole life.
Yeah. and he accelerates enough in speed in intellect that he realizes this
Mhm.
a lot quicker than they may have wanted. But he's got these two doctors that stick through to him that do most of the dirty work for Bartok. Is Shepard, and Star Trek fans. I'm sorry, I could not break away from it. The other doctor's name is Janeway, played by Anne Marie Lee.
However, this Janeway was first.
Yes, this Janeway was first, which, but it still was really tough to separate that name. But these two were two peas in a pod who just seemed to have something really against Martin, but they never really explore what. And Dawn, did you said they didn't really have anything in the commentary about it either? Why these two
No,
seem to just have a
they didn't really
grudge?
discuss the personalities of the characters all that
Mhm.
much. I mean, unless I missed something. Did you catch anything, Andrew?
I just have a theory. That's all I
Okay.
got.
Ooh, what's your theory?
That well, number one, their boss is an asshole, so obviously it's not going to be like ideal to work for him.
Sure.
But I also think, from a screenwriting point of view, you got to like kind of justify the fact that you want the audience to see them dead for some reason.
Oh yeah.
So there's that. But just like my theory on their character is that they got to be pissed that this kid is already smarter than them and he ain't but 2 years old.
Oh,
It's one
Yeah.
part where he's like, I gotta give you this maze to complete, Martin. And Martin's like, God damn it. And he just scribbles on a paper and homie just puts it right up against it and it fits perfect. That's got to make him mad.
yeah.
Because his student loans got to be outrageous.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the fact that he doesn't necessarily want to be there teaching his kid because he's like, this test, he knows the kid's going to pass it.
Mhm.
And Shepard, yeah, that's a great scene because Shepard's like, would you just take this test so we both can go on and do something better with our life?
Yeah, like,
Yep.
what he's going to do? What's better
Yeah.
that Shepard's got to do?
Yeah, who knows?
Clean
Yeah.
his glasses and shit. I think that, yeah, it's got to be a combination of them two things. One, like probably for an actor, it's got to be fun to play a piece of, if they're
Yeah.
all happy, it wouldn't be any fun. But also, yeah, I mean, they're all setting up these people to get murdered.
Oh
And
yeah.
so you got to make the audience be like, I don't like them. I don't like them either. So they're okay when the fly, like, murderizes them later.
Yeah. And if you don't care for the two doctors, you're definitely not going to care for the head of security, are you, Andrew?
Man, that motherfucker. I don't know though, man. I don't want to skip ahead, but I think they mixed up some of the deaths too much. Like
Mhm.
I would have given him one of them other ones rather than that one.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I agree.
he was the
Janeway
road
and yeah.
he was the roads of this movie.
He was such a sleaze bag, and he's a sleaze bag to especially to Martin. You can tell this guy just wants to kill this kid. He wants to do something, man. Everybody has something against Martin, like you said, Andrew. I think it's because you want to make him be able to. You want them dead.
Well, but Don also said, and this is very astute, you also have to give Martin a reason to be hostile toward those people.
Right.
Because otherwise he's a fucking murderer. I mean, he is anyways, but you know what I'm saying? Like he's homicide. He's like Schwarzenegger in Commando.
Right. Yeah, it does help at least justify a little bit. You can see why Martin's doing it because here is a guy who at 5 years old is looking like full-grown Eric Stoltz, is smart like Sheldon Cooper, and for the first time, he discovers a woman in the form of Daphne Zuniga's Beth Logan. Now, Don, what did you think of Miss Beth Logan? As
Um,
say compared to our other leading lady in the first one, Gina Davis, because there's kind of a parallel between the two.
a bit. But I think she worked out a little better with this story as being she seemed kind of socially awkward when she was introduced. I mean, with the fly fishing at night alone, just kind of there, night shift.
Mm-hmm.
Night shift sucks. I don't care what job you have. Um, and then kind of being invited into the inner sanctum of a level she had no right to be in. I don't know. It just worked.
Yeah.
And I mean, and not even talking about her character development, just talking about from when she was first started. I mean, it made sense
Mm-hmm.
within the story. I mean, her
And
character development was awesome.
yeah, I loved her character development, and much like Gina Davis, felt kind of like a good counterpart to Brundle in many ways in the first film, as far as they both are actually familiar with science. She was a science reporter, and that, and you know, he was a smart scientist. Here we have two socially awkward people who are also intelligent, and the system is not treating them well. You know, Andrew, what'd you think of Beth Logan?
Man, I understood Beth Logan, man, because like, check it out. If you work those shitty hours, you got no social life.
Mm-hmm.
You're not gonna meet nobody. You're gonna, you know, when the clubs are open and shit, and all the cool things are happening, your ass is at the, you know, at the lab. So for her to run into anybody at that place that's not a piece of shit, because what do we know about everyone else that works there except for Martin? Piece of shit.
Yeah.
So I am like, if I was her, I'd be like, please don't even leave this room, Martin Brundle. I don't care if you're 5 years old. Please don't leave this room.
Yeah, and here we are seeing, which we've seen in a few films, some topics of the topic of the treatment of women in the workplace and what positions they end up getting versus which ones they actually should be getting. We can get all of that through the Beth Logan character, I think. In here, it's not you know, really explored, but it is touched on when she say, Andrew, that the whole you know, where she deserves to be versus where they keep putting her because basically she's a woman.
Oh yeah, man, definitely. And like, you see who's the other lady, right? That
Mhm.
works there. I mean, what the like, that's how you got to be to get there, to, you know, to get the
Mhm.
job of just like, you know, giving shots to the kid. I mean, their shit is all, yeah, no.
Doing a poor job of giving shots to the kid, but that could have been on purpose.
Yeah, no, that's true.
That could have been on purpose, but yeah, you're right. The only other real female staff member we're introduced to extensively is Janeway, who is just, yeah, totally different than Beth Logan. But we do get the montage later on because as Martin and Beth become closer, he brings her into his research because, hey, and this is kind of the parallel to the first one where he becomes enamored with this female who understands his work enough, and he brings it in. So there is, Don, isn't there? There is a little bit of a parallel between Martin and Beth and our Brundle and Gina Davis's character in the first one, isn't there?
Well, absolutely. He's kind of in a lull. He doesn't have any friends. He has no motivation. The only people he talks to are jerks.
Mhm.
So yeah, having a little friendly encouragement instead of prodding, even from his father figure,
Right.
that would be a huge motivator. I mean, hey, I'm enjoying my life, therefore I can actually do things and make it worthwhile.
And much like we saw in the first one, they are running a parallel on purpose. I know that's, you know, with it being the sequel, they're running the parallel. She's helping him with his research. She can actually do things besides just hit the enter key. What? You know what I mean?
I do, man. I'm laughing near
Yeah.
you.
Oh, because yeah, you know, she's actually sitting there helping him. She's in front of the computer. She's, you know, and yeah, it's great to see these two kind of bond together, similar to way, you know, his dad and mom did, but this seems a little bit more of a stable relationship than those two had, because we don't get that kind of jealousy from Martin in this one that Brundle, you know, his dad had in the first one. His motivation is completely different for this experiment, isn't it, Don? Though, did
Very
you like
much so.
Did you like the change in motivation? Because in the first one, we saw what motivation there was for his dad, but here he's got a completely different purpose for doing the teleportation experiment, doesn't he?
He does. And like I said, it's a lighter movie, and because he doesn't discover who he is until the quite a bit later into the movie, and it kind of makes up for it then. But yeah, it's a lighter movie. It's good that there's different motivation, because even with all the parallels, you need that distance.
Yeah, though I do still feel the bit of a hint of spirituality in here. Just a little bit, not as much like in the heavy one, but I mean, let's face it, when he's born and he comes out of the cocoon, how does the doctor hold the baby up to?
Oh God, yes. Jesus.
Like Simba.
Like Simba.
The circle of life. He holds him up, and you get the feeling he is kind of still. He's handled well. He is handled like by Bartog, like a chosen one. So I mean, it's not nearly as deep as the first one. Don't get me wrong. Like as we said, this is a lighter film. This is a more kind of a straightforward type of film, but you do still get these hints of symbology in here and representation. And Andrew, wouldn't you say he does have a little bit of that chosen one? I mean, it's hinted at, but it's not slammed over the head over. But you still get that in here, a little bit of the maybe not child of of God sort of thing, but still a bit of a spirituality hint. Would you feel with Martin Brundle?
I mean, I don't know, man, because I was raised by wolves. But I will say this.
God, I love you.
I will say, hey, you could derail. I could give you a sidebar 2 hours long, motherfucker. I'm just saying, they know that he's like extremely important. Like that's their prize, this kid, because they know what's getting ready to happen to him. They don't know exactly, but it's all about that. Because they're devoted to all of that research and shit. So what's he do when Martin, like he puts him to work as soon as he possibly can to start, resume on that research, because they're fucking it up. They're not doing anything. They suck. What does he say? The world's most expensive juicer.
Juicer, yes.
They can't do shit. So he means a lot to them, not just from what he is, but from what he could do to them, for them rather. That's all they're interested in. He will, they're evil corporation, right? So whoever's gonna make them money, and put them on top and shit. They got these lofty things about controlling all life, and I forget what he says, but I'm like, whatever, you cracker. But no, he's everything to them, man. He definitely is their son of God and whatnot, even though I don't really know about all that shit.
No, but I mean, son of God or chosen one of the, that he's the chosen one. If you don't want to go specifically with God, he's the guy. He's the one.
He's the golden calf, the cash cow, the money maker.
Yes, exactly. He's the one that they're pinning all their hopes to, because
and yet they're so resentful of him.
Yes.
Don't let him read Into the Wild. Or no, that wouldn't have been out yet. Don't let him read On the Road.
On the Road. There you go. Yeah, they are resentful, yet they know this is their cash cow. If he's successful, they're all gonna make some serious bank and rolling. But at the same time, they're resentful because this kid just is like way above them in every aspect, even in his view of things. Because even though Martin Brundle is in a lab environment, he was still a child, and he managed to reprogram, thanks to his his 8086 that he had. He was able to reprogram his security card and break into level 4 and befriend a dog that was going to be used for an experiment. And that's where we find out that they don't know what they're doing with the teleport pods. And Dawn, how heartbreaking was that? And do you think you kind of need that scene so you get the idea that Martin is human?
Oh gosh, yes. That was a fantastic scene. It was shocking. It was dramatic. It was, yeah, it definitely showed who was and was not human.
Mm-hmm. Because I think there's might be a little concern with him being accelerated smart kid at 10 years old and growing faster, that the audience may lose the fact that this kid is still a human by all rights. So we get this dog scene, and I think it really brings it home that no, this is a person here inside this corporate experiment. And Andrew, what'd you think about the relationship they built with Martin and the dog, and how important that was to making Martin human?
I mean, once again, John is correct as shit, because who's he going to learn empathy from in that place?
Yeah.
You know, fucking nobody.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's a good way to do it. But man, let me tell you, when I was a kid and I saw that, it upset me so much.
Oh,
It
man.
upset me. No, not to go into it too much, but I had a dog of mine get hit by a car in the middle of the night when I was a kid, and my dad and I were the ones to run out to the street to get her, and it was
Yeah.
not completely dead. And shit, when I saw that, man, it just, you know what I'm saying, it made me that. But how good is that special effect though to do that?
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's good.
I mean, because think about it. If you were the person making that effect, it couldn't look too real, because then it would be super fucked and
Right.
the audience would just be like not looking. But it also couldn't look too fake either, because then they laugh at it and be like, oh, you assholes, look what you did. I mean, that, as much as I won't lie to you, I fast forwarded through it when I rewatched it for this podcast. I can't handle that shit. I can't handle that shit. But Don is absolutely right. This is crucial, man, to show what type of fly he's going to grow up to be. And if you didn't catch it there, you're going to catch it later when he pet the puppy in the fly hand.
When I was rewatching it, my dog was sitting on my lap, and when it came to this scene where he enters in the dungeon where they're keeping what remains of the poor dog,
Which they said the dog was dead, but they lied, of course.
yeah.
Assholes.
So when that scene came on, whatever my dog heard or saw, she hopped off my lap. She went and she hopped up and was just, I sent Mark a video of this. She was just sitting there trying to get to the TV to make the dog feel better.
Oh,
It was heartbreaking.
man, you ought to at Chris Wayless that video, man. I bet you it'll make him feel good. You know he ain't doing nothing. I hate to say it, but I haven't looked him up. But, you know, I mean, you watch those behind the scenes things and all those people's jobs are gone. You know?
Yeah. When it's practical effects, folks really have a tough time by now. But it's interesting, because what I liked about that too is that was more where in the first one, the motivation for Brundle to kind of finally evolve and go crazy was darker and dealt with jealousy and dealt with his feelings towards his, girl. This one, you get the dog scene. What? Sorry.
That was awkward.
Sorry, that was very awkward. Her name escaped me. I apologize. To Gina Davis's character. Okay. His jealousy in that drove him and motivated him to do the bad things because he wanted to be with her in his twisted way. In this one, the motivation, especially when we see Martin later starting to fly out and really become the Fly, but his hatred towards the corporation Bartok is more grounded almost with the lies and the distrust that he ended up getting, and in no small part the lying of the fact they told him the dog was dead and it wasn't, and he had to, I mean, that was almost more of a motivator than kidnapping his girl and such later on. Wouldn't you say, Andrew, that the dog relationship what really added maybe a little bit more to his motivation of hating on the dad figure, Bartok?
That's the only, I mean, it's not the only reason to do it, but that's double the reason to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you think about you would want to avoid having something that horrible in a movie. if you got a fucking heart, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so you like, if you're going to put something that gut wrenching in a movie, you're either Pixar or you are trying to give the audience, build them up, man, for this, like, God, this, I described it at the top of the show as a revenge movie.
Yeah.
What do we know about revenge movies? It's all about that build, man. It's just
Mhm.
making you mad, making you upset to where you want to see justice served. And yeah, that's got to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, it does, but uh, and it is unfortunate and it's so heartbreaking, but I just found it interesting the motivation behind Martin Fly, Marty McFly. Sorry, keep thinking of that
Yeah,
now.
sorry.
You put that in my head. Now it's not going
Back
away.
to
But
Future Nerds or Eric
yeah,
Stolt Nerds. I mean, that's like the big trivia bit, right?
yeah, exactly. The Brundlefly 2, it it is interesting that is the different motivation. And I liked that. I liked they gave it, with the sequel, they're doing something different rather than making it another just rehash of, oh, he, something with jealousy or something with involving his relationship with Beth. As being the sheer motivation for his killing. Don, how'd you feel about that as well? Did you think that this dog scene helped kind of establish that there's different motivations for the killing versus what his dad had, which it was in the first one?
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
It was so heart-wrenching. The little dog, the mutant dog. How did they
And
make how did they make such a grotesque looking thing so sympathetic?
They took a lot, man. If you look at the bonus features,
Uh-huh.
man, they took a lot of time on that thing. And up until the moment, right, Don, like up until they brought it to set, the director was having them change it,
yeah,
He
yep.
was like, he was very, I mean, it's a crucial ass moment,
Mhm.
you cannot, like it gets real narrow
Yeah.
what's gonna work and what won't. And he said they probably hated him for it because he was, up until the last minute having them change it and shit, like right there.
But it was worth
Wow.
it.
Oh yeah,
It
make or
it's
break.
it is totally worth it because it's a powerful scene. It's the turning point for Martin because it's where he grows up as well.
Hmm.
I mean, he's kind of growing up with exploring these feelings he has for Beth, but this really kind of hits home and kind of pushes him to grow up in that, oh, Bartok is not the friendly dad figure. This guy lied to me about something that I loved, and I had to kill it because he didn't want it to suffer. So putting him in that position just made things even, make him not like Bartok even more. And yeah, it is an important turning point, and the practical effect looks fantastic.
Yep.
Actually,
And Stoltz's face is great when he sees that. Like
yeah,
those scenes, he's so. I mean, that's why you want to get a actor that's this good, and not
Yeah.
just have some Johnny whatever fresh face from TV or the casting whatever. Like when he's crying and when he tells Bartok like this, he goes, "I loved you," like to his face like that. It doesn't seem corny at all. Like it's very,
mm-mm.
very. It's got punch to it.
It's got punch and it felt appropriate within the character of Martin Brundle because when
Yeah.
he first sees the dog, he doesn't like cry like but his eyes are red and he's tearing up. He's like trying to process
Yeah,
this.
but think about what trauma you're gonna have as a kid if you just grew up in the bubble.
Right.
Any kid would have been fucked up by that, but it's got to be times 10. When they talk about, and not to digress about this, but his whole shit is accelerated. His whole life, everything is
Yeah.
accelerated, and he's having an accelerated emotional experience. I mean, that's not lost on me. I mean, it probably was when I was a kid watching it, but as a grown up watching it, you just go like, everything that's going to happen to you is going to be 10 times worse because of that, that maturity factor.
Well,
And
go ahead,
and
Don.
to drive the point home even further, after this all occurs, when Bartok and Janeway are sitting there observing him and questioning him on what happens, and he lies, and Bartok gets this kind of almost smug smile, and so does Janeway, discussing how, oh my gosh, he lied to you. Yes, he did. I'm so proud. Look at our little boy is growing up. It's like, if you didn't already know they were a dick, drove home, point home much faster.
He's going to make a great lobbyist for us.
Yeah. And yeah, old Martin, and I'm glad you brought that up, because with him accelerated and his accelerated knowledge, he's also very aware that he's probably going to accelerate to his death a lot sooner than most people, because let's face it, a fly's life span is not long, and neither is a Brundlefly's lifespan.
Yo, but what does he accelerate to first with his girlfriend?
Yeah, they do get a little bit of Quincy Jones playing, and like, you know, sorry, yeah, they do have the love scene, which is, you know, just don't think of the age of Martin.
Well, now he's accelerated maturity, they say. I'm talking more like we're talking about setting up Bartok to be a shithead.
Oh, that way too.
What he does when he tells him he's given him his own apartment and his freedom, but really it's not. Like, how fucked up was that? What he did?
And oh my God, to have that camera pointed directly at his bed, that's sick.
Well, yeah, and then that just gives the opportunity for you to hate the head of security even more, who is all creeper on Beth after he said, "Yeah, I saw the footage."
So gross.
He's just so gross. Oh my God. Everybody in this film outside of Martin and Beth are so gross.
I love it. I love it. I love it, because it's just a testament to how well those actors performed.
Wasn't he a comedian? The security head of security?
That's a comedian.
Yeah, he was. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you usually saw him in comedic roles. So to see him in a scuzzy role was great.
You hated his ass, man.
Oh man. Well, yeah, I mean, and then you got to the climax, you know, you get the third act or whatnot, and they're taking on Martin Brundlefly, and he ends up shooting the doctor at one point because he's so scared, and he's just like, "Oh, I shot him. Oh well." Oh, he said, "Fuck." And then he just went on. It's like,
yeah, well, you know, you can't let the black guy live. So
yeah, he was pretty much the only black guy in there
in this whole movie, as far as I remember.
So yeah, oh my God, he couldn't live, right? Jesus, according to those tropes that we have from films like this. But yeah, it is a shame that they had to have that character die. I would have liked to see that one character live, but no, can't have that. But it just makes the dick guy even more of a dick, the security guard, if you didn't hate him already. Which this third act was interesting, because this one suddenly it turns and it feels a little bit more like the original Fly, especially with Martin's attitude. Go ahead, Don.
I was gonna say, as far as character development goes, and some of the running and hiding, it felt a whole lot more like the original Terminator.
Oh, good point.
Especially because Beth, she goes from timid little girl to fighting badass, protecting her mutating fella. Yeah, and then, you know, few of the scenes at the hotel and running through the woods, and that I am sure that was just completely coincidental, but yeah, it did kind of smack of Terminator for me.
Nah, it wasn't coincidental. That's what they were going for, I'm sure. Because now that you mention it, I totally see it, that Beth Logan kind of takes that Sarah Connor arc that you had, where she becomes the protector. And she does it quite well, in fact, until he really goes full mutant, and then she can't. And she's just like,
he didn't go full mutant. He went into a cocoon.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. It just full cocoon state, and she just couldn't handle that. But I love that bit of dialogue because it does harken back to the original where she wakes up because they're hiding out, and his fly mojo is in full effect, and they're in a hotel, and she sleeps and she wakes up, and he's like just cocooning himself, and he's full on in these really wicked prosthetics, and they're talking about it, and he talks about, I'm getting better. I remember that shot from the trailer, and it struck me because Eric Stoltz performs this so well. He sounds just for a moment like his dad.
Mhm.
You know, even with the way he talks. Don, did you kind of feel like that? Like he was kind of going for
Oh,
as much
absolutely.
as possible, sounding like his dad?
Absolutely. He was definitely doing his best Goldblum impression.
Yeah, and I think it succeeds, and it helps kind of tie the two together and make you realize what this transformation is doing to him. You know, and Andrew, what do you think of the transformation of Martin once things really get into full swing? Did you kind of feel like they were really leaning towards a little bit that he very much was now like his dad when his dad was turning?
I mean, if you're a fan of The Fly, this is the type of shit you want to see, you know, and this is the type of shit the producer, Mel Brooks,
Yep.
wants you to see, man. People are come to a Fly movie looking for that because, you know, the first one won an Oscar for the effects, man, because you cannot come up on short on this movie. You got to do the sequel thing of ramping it up. So when people are really going to want to see shit get gooey and gross and freaky and weird and, you know, so that's what they're kind of giving them. Although I don't know if there's going to be time to mention this at one point. Don, did you watch the deleted scene? The deleted scene?
I didn't.
Let me tell you, this movie, I bought this collector's edition when the collector's edition of The Fly came out years ago. They both did collector edition at the same time. They were both double disc. I did not open The Fly 2 until last night. After I saw this deleted scene, I was regretting it like shit because the deleted scene from The Fly 2 is one of the best deleted scenes I've ever seen of any movie ever. Most of the time you're going like, it's kind of boring. I could see why they cut it. This scene is crazy. This is right around where it happens, so I want to say it. Is that cool?
Yeah, go ahead, please. By all means.
Here's what it is. Before they get to the hotel, they stop at this like fast food place,
I
and
read about this.
right, Stoltz is in the car, obviously, because no one eating should see him. But Zuniga goes in and gets some burgers and shit. While she's in there, like a little league coach comes in behind her. He's got a car full of little baseball player kids that are like razzing Stoltz through the car window. Right? They're like all like making fun of him and yelling at him and shit, and he's making faces back at them. They roll the window up just in time. He barfs on their window. He totally projectiles some fly puke on the window of these kids.
Wow.
That's the deleted scene, and the coach comes out and he's all like pissed because he sees all the puke and thinks the kids did it. They're gone, you know?
Yeah.
But oh shit, right? I mean, it's too funny. I can see why they took it out. It's too funny, and plus, you know, like that could have melted all those kids' faces off. So as an audience, we're like, we don't need to be against Brundle at this point for any reason after we've seen how compassionate he is. It seems more of just like a funny gag for them to have done, you know, stick a hose beside his face, squirt the kids. But damn if that wasn't hilarious.
Yeah, I read about that scene, but I didn't watch it.
Yeah, you'll it's not, the effect isn't even that great. But when the coach comes back out, they get this wide shot of like all this puke on the ground, fly puke. I mean, that if nothing else really shows Mel Brooks. Like, I mean, Mel Brooks obviously is a huge horror fan because Young Frankenstein, despite the fact that it's a comedy, is a beautiful, like, you know, that person loved Frankenstein that made that movie. Yeah, that was probably just one for Mel Brooks. He was probably like, you know what? Why we got the camera here? Let's have him puke on this little league team.
You are right, though, that
sorry,
if you
man,
keep that in. No, go ahead.
I'd say I totally derailed this shit. I'm sorry.
No, but I could see why they deleted it. One, you're right, the humor would be there, but two, if you think a little bit deeper on the scene, you realize he may have tried to do it to hurt the kids, in which case that puts him in a whole different category suddenly. Whereas you've built him up as a sympathetic character. Yeah.
It's wrong for the movie, but for the deleted scenes, that's one of the best. That's so good.
It sounds awesome.
Really, man.
Yeah. So, I can see why they cut it, but yeah, that does sound hilarious, especially with the coach scene. But yeah, they do a good job, I think, of really developing him into a sympathetic character, even when he is starting to talk a little bit more like the original Brundlefly. You still feel sympathetic for him because you realize that it's partly because of his condition. And then he goes into Cocoon, and Bartok is so excited, and Janeway's so excited until the Cocoon is hatched. And Andrew, this Brundlefly is an upgrade, isn't he?
I loved it, man. I mean, Don, do you think the effects are better in part 2? Yes or no?
In some ways, yes. But not. I don't want to say better. They're different because they are going for a different thing.
Okay, maybe I'm sorry. Maybe I should have asked. Do you think the Brundlefly, like when it's not a person anymore but it's a puppet, do you think they did it better?
I do. I think they did because they could do it better.
Yeah.
I think that Jeff Goldblum's Brundlefly had to be a sloppy mess for many reasons.
I hate to laugh.
To make that story work and more horrific.
Yeah.
I think that the Martin Brundlefly could be much more awesome and kick ass.
Yeah.
Because they could do it better.
Yeah, he was like, man, this puppet that they had, it's a trip because it reminded me of how they do the Striders in Dark Crystal. You got somebody on stilts,
exactly,
right? But they didn't have to worry about they break up the shot so they don't have to show him full body walking like the Striders. So all they really had to worry about was shooting the feet and then having this rad animatronic head for that kind of looks like Eric Stoltz, doesn't it?
Does.
I mean, the eyes, right? I mean, let's face it, man. Having the special effect guy, Oscar-winning a special effect guy, in charge of making the sequel, he was gonna bring it, man. And being his first movie he was directing on a Fox Studios movie, he couldn't come up short. This thing looks so freaking good. But there's a shot where the Fly is dragging a dead security guard or some cop or whatever down a hallway. You remember that shot? That was so great. Like at first you go like, how'd they do this? But they built this whole rig, man. That's the thing though, man. I'm not anti-CGI, but there's something to it, about these old movies, how they pulled off this stuff when they make you believe it's really happening via, just regular skill or skill plus cocaine. It's so like I will never not appreciate,
Oh yeah, practical effects. I mean, it's always fun to see how creative they had to get when someone would come to them and say, "Hey, we want to do this."
Yeah.
And instead of the effects guy going right away, well, not really. They go, "All right, we'll see if we can make it work." And they do the best they can and get very creative, and you end up, I loved the Martin Brundlefly in this, the way he looked, the way they lit it, the animation, animatronics with it, everything with this thing. It was very fitting for this film. I'm with Dawn, where the Brundlefly in the original one was fitting for that story and that setting, and here this one, He's a little slicker. He's a little meaner looking. He's got more detail in his face. You're right. He still looks like Eric Stoltz.
He does. How they did that shit, I don't even know. Because Eric Stoltz is a very, and also we didn't mention Stoltz gets ass naked just like Goldblum did. We didn't even mention that.
That's true. He does.
Because y'all took a moment about naked Goldblum on that last episode.
We did. So we got to mention Naked Stoltz. There is a Naked Stoltz as well.
Happens
There
right
is,
after the
but
dog.
it's
So
not quite as impressive.
It's not quite Jeff Goldblum, but it's impressive.
Right.
I mean, he's 5. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt kind of creepy.
He didn't have no game yet. He was only 5.
Though he looked 30. Yeah. That still is kind of mind twisting, but there
Don't
is
make it weird, Mark.
I'm not. Yeah, don't make The Fly too weird.
Just playing, man. But no, for real though, I really think this movie, people don't talk about it and they shit on it or whatever, or they don't respect it. Because I really think it's because Fly 2 is seen as like this high bar, like the thing of not only effects but of remake on what a remake could be. That Fly 2 does not get the attention it deserves for having great ass special effect. It's one of the better effect movies of the 80s, specifically the late 80s, I think.
And people are so busy comparing it to Cronenberg's The Fly that they're missing what it was intended to be. It wasn't intended to be dark, and it wasn't intended to the director, who's, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on the name, intentionally avoided all the gore that Cronenberg is traditionally known for, except for the very few and awesome scenes.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, this guy, the director of this, I mean, the guy's credentials are insane. You look at it, Gremlins. He worked apparently uncredited, but he worked on Return of the Jedi, House 2. He worked, as you mentioned, Andrew, he worked on The Fly. He worked on Arachnophobia, which looks freaking awesome.
Yeah, dude. Oh, Arachnophobia.
And he works later on a film we'll be talking later in the year for our Welcome to Cronenberg episode, where he worked on Naked Lunch. I mean, this guy has a impressive special effects pedigree, you know, and the fact that he what?
I'm just looking at this: Raiders of the Lost Ark, Scanners, Galaxina, Gremlins.
Right?
It's huge.
Hey, I'll
Yeah.
say this right now, man. While we're talking about Cronenberg, the head crush in The Fly 2, better than the head explosion in Scanners. Why? Because there's blood left after it happens.
Exactly.
There is blood left after it happens. Another Dick Guard gets his head crushed in the elevator, which was awesome effect. You're right. The special effects in this, it's weird because this is where I could get on my soapbox, but I won't, of Rotten Tomatoes, because you look at it and the rating for the first Fly is phenomenal, is fresh, if you will, and the Fly 2 is at like 35%, and I'm like sitting there going, how? Because this film, there's nothing wrong with The Fly 2 by any means.
Something wrong with the people that don't like it. It's not got nothing to do with the movie.
I mean, this is what you want to do with a sequel to a movie like the original Fly. You don't want the same. You're not going to replicate the same if you've got a different director. So instead of doing that, take it in a direction like this where you're exploring something that's a little bit more, for lack of a better term, upbeat, as Dawn mentioned, and you did to Andrew, lighter. It's not quite as heavy in some of its themes, but it's still wildly entertaining for a horror film. And yeah, the special effects. I mean, we talked about the dog, how it looked, Brundlefly, how he looked, going around, acing all the horrible people in the factory and making you believe this is one huge, just really wicked, badass fly person. And there's the end, because we do get the comeuppance of Bartog. And Dawn, how about the effect at the end of what Bartog looks like when the Fly, our Martin Fly, is successful in what he was trying to do in replacing his fly genes. What'd you think of Bartok's look at the end?
Yeah, it wasn't all too much. Well, wasn't all too much different than that poor dog. Now, was it? Just
No.
a shorter snout.
Shorter snout. It was still consistent with what happened to the dog.
Mhm.
But it still looked awesome.
Yeah.
And I liked, while the resolution in the first one, and I know we keep going back, but it's hard not to compare the two, was a bit of kind of a downer. This one is by far a happier ending.
Yeah. It's kind of strange to say that, but yeah, it was a happy ending, comparatively speaking.
Comparatively speaking, I mean, you still have the, but it's Bartok. This guy's such a horrible person. You don't really have any sympathy for him. But Andrew, would you say this is kind of a happy ending to this film?
I mean, man, you cannot copy The Fly 1. You do not want to copy The Fly 1 with this movie. You don't want to have a bunch of callbacks to shit. I mean, you think about you're the producer, Mel Brooks is going like, man, we need to gore this up. We need to action this up. We need to barf this up. I mean, when you, in The Fly 1, he throws up on dude's foot, then he throws up on dude's hand, and he's about to throw up on his face, and the audience is going like, no, what the fuck? Don't do that, man. But you already made the audience afraid to see that, right?
Right.
What do they do in The Fly 2? He fully barfs in somebody's face. The man is screaming, tearing his own face off. He's still alive when he's on the floor with just his bloody, meaty skull. Someone steps on him or something, and you see the breath come out his mouth.
Yep.
I mean, shit. They are going, like, they really do, And so by the end, when you get that effect of, he's to cure himself, he's realized he's got to swap his someone else's healthy genes with his, and so he ends up swapping with that piece of shit. But we already know what's going to happen to the other person because of that great state of the art special computer screen graphic rendering.
Well, back then that was impressive, though.
Yeah, it's impressive, but it's still in your mind. You're going like, oh, I hope this doesn't happen because that would be gross. / it better happen because stuff like too. And so when it does, it also gives you some more payoff from that gross ass thing with the dog. Except, who do you feel sorry for? The dog, not this motherfucker. Movies have their weird ass justice system to where it's like the punishments will fit the crime. So the big boss has to get like the biggest, most worst, most meaningful, heaviest like demise. Having him get his back broken, like that one guy, security guy. Whatever.
Oh God, yeah, the guy got folded in half
Yeah,
backwards.
his shit. He just deck chaired him, whatever. You don't want that to be for the main bad guy. You want something really fucked to happen to him. So Fly drags him into the pod, fuses with him, comes out. He is all like nasty ass Todd Browning freak style looking piece of I don't know what. He's got no chance of reaching his plate of sawmill gravy later. And there is in the back though, Stoltz coming out the cocoon and he's fine.
Yeah.
Except for Zuniga, like, doesn't she kiss him while his face is still full of like butthole gore?
Yeah.
Yes, she does.
That is a friend for you.
Yeah.
That is a friend for you. So yeah, absolutely, I agree, man. I mean, it is some serious pay. I'm still like mind boggled that people are so shitty that they don't like this movie. It's great.
I don't understand it either. I don't understand the low rating, why it doesn't get talked more, because it's a solid, especially for late 80s horror. This is a solid monster film through and through. With the payoff at the end, because they get you a little question, they get you a little worried, don't they, Don? When he comes out and you've got Bartog all mutated, but you see he's attached to Martin, you do get worried for a little bit that's the way they're stuck, don't you?
That they might be fused together. Yeah, you do have that moment until she starts helping him rip the goo off. Yeah.
Yeah,
moment.
And she kisses him even with the goo on, so that's true love.
Yeah. And circle back to when he was born.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that it happens 3 times. Ooh, trilogy again.
Oh,
You know,
God.
sorry. We won't go down that road again, Dom, but you have it happen 3 times. He's first in the cocoon when he's born, and then he's in the cocoon when he turns into full-on fly, and then he's in at least most of a cocoon when he separates the fly stuff from his body.
You know what it should have happened though, man?
Hmm.
You know what should have happened? A beautiful butterfly. Just like the hungry caterpillar.
Comes out with wings.
It would have been great if he was just a fairy and he flies away.
Yeah. So Mark, now you made my brain go there. So you could almost say, if you're pushing the philosophical thing here, so when he was born, there was nothing he could do about it. That was done to him.
Yes.
When he evolved into, or when he went into the cocoon and came out as the cool fly, again, that was evolution. That was him growing up. And then the third time he came out of the cocoon, that was his choice of who he wanted to be.
Yes.
I hate that my brain works this way sometimes.
No, I love it. I love it.
I wanted to say that regarding comeuppance
Mhm.
in some of these characters, I really wanted to see Janeway have a far worse death.
You didn't really. I mean, you saw the aftermath, but you didn't really see anything like happen to her, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I needed more catharsis with that one.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see him like if it had some kind of stinger or something, or grab a needle or something and just do something a little bit more, because she was really the reason why he started to turn into the fly. In all honesty, was her treatment of him and that abuse with the needle in that, which kind of sparked all that. So yeah, you're right, Don. I wanted a little bit more from her death as well. It sounds bad, but it's true.
Well, and that's the beauty of this, of film in general, is we can get those, like Andrew mentioned earlier. You can have that film justice and not feel guilty about it because it's in film. You can get
Right.
that catharsis. We can get that catharsis in our fiction.
Because we know at the end of the day, when they yell cut, the person gets up, they walk away.
Yep.
You know. So yeah, this film, it deserves, I think, more praise. I loved it. It's been such a long time since I watched it, but watching it again, I'm like, what do people find wrong with this movie? There is absolutely nothing wrong with it. It gives you just enough bits that relate to the original, but at the same time, it's a solid sequel on its own legs. You could watch this on its own without having watched number 1 and completely enjoy it, I think. What do you say, Don? Would you say you have
Absolutely.
to?
Yeah, you don't have to see the first one in order to enjoy this.
Which I think, especially for the time it came out, is perfect. What about you, Andrew? You think you could watch this without having to see The Fly?
Nah, man. As a matter of fact, if I was gonna put it on a double bill with something, I'd play Swamp Thing in The Fly too.
Oh, there you go.
You know,
That's a wicked double bill there. Definitely. I could see that that would relate quite a bit. And the aesthetics of the makeup for some of the scenes would relate.
yeah.
Would relate quite a bit. So yeah, The Fly 2, folks. I think we'll wrap it up for the night. And if you haven't picked up on it, you should. I think you should check it out. So we'll go down real quick and just get final thought with The Fly 2. And I think you'll know what they'll say, but we'll get it anyway from our panel of if they recommend this to people. So Don, you can go first. The Fly 2, your final thoughts with it now that we've seen both 1 and 2 back to back, and would you recommend it?
I would recommend it, and just if you work in the healthcare field, suspend your disbelief in certain areas.
Was it hard to separate that a little bit?
Oh, that beginning part where after Martin was born, and they're showing the monitors and her heart rate is over 100 and her O2 sats are like 97%. And they're like, oh my God, she's failing. You don't defibrillate somebody whose heart rate is 100. Okay, I'm over it.
Okay.
Defibrillator is when your heart stops.
Yeah, I that had me a little confused too, but it was quick enough, you know. Uh, Andrew, how
Sorry.
about? Yeah, no, that's quite all right. Andrew, how about you? Your final thought with The Fly 2, and do you recommend it?
Man, how hard would it have been for the person writing that shit just to call the hospital real quick? Just go, hey, I don't want to look like an asshole on this podcast that's going to happen decades from now. Could y'all just... They're all, first of all, what's a podcast? Yeah, man, you know how I feel about the 80s. I'm fucking sick of it. You know, I'm tired of it. I don't care. And whenever the whole remake conversation is brought up, which is a white boy horror fan's favorite thing to shit on, they always talk about The Thing and The Fly. They've been talking about The Blob more, but mostly The Thing and The Fly. And I promise you that legacy of The Thing and The Fly is why part 2, they don't have any love for part 2. But check it out. They don't like part 2. Why would they like a remake? These people don't know what they want. They don't know a good movie if it threw up on their face and their face came off, you dumbass. So I obviously love The Fly 2, man. For special effects, it's so good. It's way better than average for a horror sequel, especially a horror sequel around that. It's better than average for a horror movie around that time. But it's also like, man, yeah, if you like The Predator, shit like that, you know, give it a shot. But I do want to say this, man. Feel bad about what I said about the director, Chris Walas, not having anything to do, and to add him on Twitter. He made another movie. His only other movie he ever directed. Do you care if I mention this?
Go right ahead, please.
It's a movie. I saw it on Scream Factory. It's one of those 4 movie sets they got.
Right.
It's called The Vagrant. The Vagrant is even better than The Fly 2. If you get a chance, if you like horror comedy, check it out. Bill Paxton is the star of this movie.
Oh shit! Well, then good.
Oh man, he plays a guy. Really quickly, the plot of it is like he moves in, he buys a house or whatever, but he goes to like basically war with the person that had been squatting there, who was a bum, played by Marshall Bell, aka Kawato from Total Recall.
Nice.
Michael Ironside's in the movie.
Shit.
Colleen Camp is in the movie. Dude, The Vagrant. Nobody knows The Vagrant. It's awesome. And
Holy
I'm sorry what I said, Chris Walas. You got The Vagrant. Yeah, man. If watch that movie, you can get it. It's real cheap on this set. But yeah, The Vagrant is the other movie Walas made right after this, and I want to say he never made any more movies. It was a great film.
He didn't direct anymore, but looking at this cast and this story, we may have to do an episode on this because this just I mean, Michael Iron, like you said, Michael Ironside, freaking Colleen Camp, Bill Paxton, Marshall Bell. Holy crap! This film just looks awesome.
It's great, man. So, yeah, man, I'll totally. Well, let's say me, you, and Don will watch The Vagrant.
I with the August, we've got live action mixed with animation, but we could maybe still work it in there. But if not, we'll definitely work it in this.
It's not going anywhere, man. But I'm just saying, put a pin in that, dude.
We will definitely. I am putting that on the list of must to talk about because this cast alone. Huh?
We should do that one, and then we should finally get around to talking about Cutthroat Island.
Yes.
Or The Long Kiss Goodnight. Or both.
Yeah, Long Kiss. My favorite Christmas movie.
Well, shit. I think we're working up our December list of films. We need one more, and I'll be good. Looking at it, the writer of The Vagrant, looking at what else he wrote, wasn't anything else really big. Though he did write Man of the House and Cold Creek Manor, Scarecrows, Blood Tide. So not too much, but I mean the fact that
Vagrant's great. It's
this
so
sounds,
good.
yeah, this sounds awesome. So we'll definitely be putting it on the list. So there you go, folks. We will be talking about that in the future. Keep your eyes and ears peeled to that. And I hope this made you interested in The Fly too, because I agree with my panel here. You should see this film. I mean, if you're hot on the 80s horror train and oh man, I gotta watch. Oh, check this shit out. The practical effects alone, the fact they're using practical still looks good today. They're doing animatronic walking creature long before Jurassic Park had your Velociraptor walking, which actually has a very similar shot. Don't ask me why it popped into my head, but there's a scene down the hallway where Martin Brundle is walking down, and the way his feet are and everything, the way it's shot, I'm like, holy crap, that shot was in Jurassic Park when the Velociraptor was walking down. So who knows? Maybe it influenced them, but nonetheless, I think it's worth a watch. It holds up quite a bit thanks to the practical effects, even with some of the computer effects they have in there for the graphics, if you will, when they're doing their research. Even that holds up. Yeah, check it out. It is do not let the Rotten Tomatoes rating fool you. This is an entertaining horror film, different from the first one, but doesn't make it any less of a film. So there you have it, folks. The Fly 2. I want to thank my panel so much for their time, as always, to talk about this film. And now this is their license to shill. And so, Dawn, you can go ahead first. And what do you have to shill?
Tonight, again, I'm going to show Northeast Wisconsin Horror Film Fest. Beautiful downtown Oshkosh at the wonderful, fantastic, historical Time Community Theater. It is the second week of August. Wait.
Second week of August. Yep. No, it's not trivia. It's not trivia. So
it is the second week of October.
Yes.
Second weekend of October. I've got trivia on the brain. What can I say? My two priorities every year.
Yes.
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 Check out
the new horror. Yes, new Horror Fest. There is a website as well. Just Google it. You'll find it and check it out. And you will definitely see Dawn and myself there supporting indie horror the whole weekend that the fest is going on. So a great plug. And yes, everyone, you should check it out. And Andrew, what have you got to shill for us, sir?
Oh man, hey, it was a pleasure. True pleasure discussing this movie with you guys. Hope I didn't say anything too stupid other than messing up the thing about Superfly at the beginning. My friends and I here in Athens, Georgia, we make movies under the banner of Gonzorific, GONZORIFFIC. And you can find us on Instagram. You can find us on YouTube. You can go to our website and buy our movies. You can find us on Amazon Prime and watch some of our movies. One of the ones you can see on YouTube for free, Creepy Crawl, about a lady who eats a bug on her pizza and goes through a transformation of her own. It's kind of freaky with the comic stylings of Catherine English and the great special effects of one Amanda Nicely. Check it out.
Awesome. So check that stuff out. You were going to say something, Don?
No.
Okay. Sorry.
Excited about Andrew's movie.
She's excited about it. I am as well.
You can put a link to it if you wanted to.
I will. I'm going to put a link in
Creepy Crawl is the name. Yeah, Kat did. She did the score for the movie right after we shot it. She just played some crazy ass music, and we used it, and it worked out perfect.
That's awesome. I love how that stuff comes together.
It's got bugs. It's got remote control. But I mean, yeah.
Well, we will definitely put a link on the webpage for that as well. So folks, check that out at specialmarkproductions.com. Thank you for your support, everyone. Thank you to my wonderful panel. It is because of them this show is what it is. And it's because of listeners out there like yourself who listen to us talk every week about interesting, odd, and unusual films. And of course, giving you lots of spoilers about them all. Hopefully this whet your appetite for The Fly. And now we'll just say a good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Hey, man, there's a lot of positive buzz about this movie, man.
Dude, wasn't that great with the buzz and then the helicopter shows up in the opening of this film?
I was
Yeah, it
shocked that the
was.
Fox logo at the beginning of the DVD had a fly that's like on it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was like, had my speakers on. I'm like, fucking know what's in here. Like, cause you don't ever see them mess with those, those logos at the beginning, like the warnings and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a fucking little animated fly.
No shit. Wow.
Pretty
That
great.
is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, both of you. As always, a pleasure. Especially a pleasure to get to talk to both of you twice in a week makes my week. So this is another awesome episode. Thank you both very much.
Oh yeah, man. I was looking forward to it, dude.
Yeah.
What's did I ask you how far you're going with Cronenberg?
You did a while ago, but yeah, we're
What are you stopping at?
actually, well, I've got Crash, and then after that, I think I forgot what I had in December. I thought maybe we might even do 2 of them in December. I'm not sure. I'd have to pull it up, but
And I'm all in for Crash, man.
oh yeah, that's gonna be, I think, a Crash I've got going on in October.
Okay.
But
I will stop editing Bad Girl Dracula 3 in order to be on that.
well, I will definitely work with you on that and make sure that you are on it. Because yeah, I'm going to be very interested in your thoughts on that one. Hold on just a second here.
I guess I got a good story about the night that it came out.
So,
It's hilarious.
I think, come on, pull it up. I had to write it down. There it is. This has changed a little, but it always changed. But I kind of did something a little different this year. I sort of planned everything out ahead of time of what I might want to talk about. Of course, it's changed thanks to wonderful suggestions by all of you out there, because I want to also talk about movies you guys definitely want to talk about.
Hey, is the submissions date already passed for the Wisconsin festival? It had to by now.
Yes, it did.
But I would be willing to bet if you contacted Paul, he would.
I don't want to mess up what they're doing or presume that one of my movies could get in. I just always miss that date, and it would be so great to put. What I want to try to do is see if he's interested in one of the movies that Dorothy was in, because she moved to Wisconsin a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
And God, it would be so rad to play one of the movies that she was in and have her come,
So I've got Naked Lunch, Existenz. November will be Crash. And right now I've got History of Violence is where we were going to stop, but I can always change that to a different one.
No, that's a good place to. That was his last big ass movie.
Yeah. And oh, Dawn, it already is on my schedule for December for Long Kiss Goodnight and Cutthroat Island.
Awesome.
So I'm going to put on here Vagrant. So that's going to be December. Vagrant. Yep. That's in there now. So
Okay.
So it is now written in blood. So or something in virtual pixels, I guess. So.
I always like, man, when we have a movie that's got old ass computers, I always like to see what you thought about those old computers.
I was actually impressed for 89. That was actually pretty impressive what they did with the computers, and the fact that he actually had some real lines of code that looked like programming code.
They did. They looked legit to me.
They looked very legit compared to a lot of especially 80s programming that you saw on computer screens,
Yeah, there was no enclosures on stuff. Most of the time, it's just the cursor, and they type one thing in, then another thing in. It's this would not cause anything to happen.
Yeah, and he's looking at lines of code that actually looked like code from back then. So someone actually put a little detail in there that I thought was a nice touch, because you get that where it's supposed to be a advanced computer system, and you look at it and you go, man, that is nowhere near reality. I'm looking at you hackers.
Yeah, they were like, look, we got one phone call. You can either call the hospital or the computer people. What's it going to be?
freaking hackers. I fully admit I watched it for Angelina Jolie when I was young. because that film, if you're an IT person, is completely ridiculous.
Remember The Net?
Oh yeah, I remember The Net. That one's a bit ridiculous too. A little bit more believable, but still pretty out there. But it's Sandra Bullock, so that's why I watched that one.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of that stuff since it was out.
I'm a big fan of Sandra. So,
What's your favorite Sandra Bullock?
favorite Sandra Bullock movie?
Yeah.
It's not Gravity, actually. Let's see. I'd have to say, unfortunately, I do have to say, my favorite Sandra Bullock film. Actually, for her performance, if we want to go by performance, the one where she played a reforming alcoholic, 28 days a week.
No, you think that's the zombie one?
No, the zombie one was still 28 days, but I forgot what it was, the full title.
28 weeks.
Or 28 weeks, yeah. Or something like that. But anyway, it was the one where she was a reformed alcoholic. I liked that because it was a different role than what she had been playing. And she did very well in it. It was it's a dramatic role with some humor in it. But that I think is one of my favorite performances of hers. But if you want to talk favorite movies, I have to go, of course, with Speed.
Yeah.
I think she played off very well with Keanu. They both just worked so well on screen, and I thought her character was really kind of just fun in that.
Yeah.
I think it was better written than what they had for Speed 2, which
Cruise Control.
Yeah, Cruise Control. Miss Congeniality. She was good in Miss Congeniality too. That was a fun one because that was a little bit different than her normal choice. So I like Sandra Bullock quite a bit. I think she got kind of pigeonholed into a role, from because it's Hollywood, because of the roles she's picked as well as kind of her look. I think she got pigeonholed into roles she's in, kind of like one of my other favorite actresses, Anna Kendrick. I think is a talented individual as well, but she gets put into these kind of girl next door type roles because Hollywood. But she was great in The Promise. I thought I dug her quite a bit in The Promise. So
my favorite Sandra Bullock is The Heat.
Oh yeah.
Because you would think she's the straight role because of McCarthy.
Mm-hmm.
She steals everything.
Mm-hmm. I liked her in Ocean's 8 too. I liked Ocean's 8 quite a bit. I know people hated on that film, but I thought she was good in that.
No, that was the first PG-13 movie we let our kid watch.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Nothing in it. Nothing bad in it.
No, that was a fun movie, and I liked her role in it. It served its purpose well, I thought, and it was entertaining, and it was what it needed to be. It looked like everybody was having fun with it.
Well, I just, I try to stuff as much, my kid is, I try to shove as in many like movies where women are running shit. I want her to see all of those.
Well, you'll have to wait till she's a little older, but I tell you what, I can't wait to see The Kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
Dude.
That's like in a couple weeks.
That's in a couple weeks, and that film looks so good. I mean, McCarthy, Melissa McCarthy, she's looking like she's taking another dramatic role, just like she had. I didn't see it, but she was supposed to be really good in it as the author, the true story of the author who did plagiarism.
Oh, you haven't seen? Oh, it's When Will You Ever Forgive Me, or Can You Ever Forget?
Yeah.
You'll love it, man. You will love it. Richard E. Grant, you like him?
Oh, I love Grant. Yeah.
That movie it's really, you want to talk about walking away with a movie? Yeah. He walks away with that. That movie's so good, man. You ought to check it out.
It's on my list because I want to see it because, when McCarthy does a little bit more of her serious stuff, I think she's actually better at it than the comedy stuff. Though she is, I find her humorous depending on the role that she ends up getting. But
she could do anything, man. But that movie it's really his movie, but only people that seen it know that.
Yeah. And so I really want to see it, but I mean, just from the scenes in the trailer of The Kitchen, I'm like, dude, I want to see this like now.
Yeah. Do you see Widows?
I did not yet. I know it's on my list. Though.
You're gonna like Widows. It's good.
I didn't get a chance to. It wasn't in the theater that long, and I didn't get a chance to get to it. But yeah, I know it's out now. I definitely want to see that. But
Daniel Kaluuya, he's a villain, and he is ice cold. He's so good. I'm still thinking about this shit he did in that movie. It's like last year or whatever.
Oh, that's what it is. Sandra Bullock in The Blind Side. Even though I know a lot of people didn't like it because they said it was a misportrayal, I loved her role in that too. I thought she was good.
I had a problem with the other Crash where, like, you know, she falls down the stairs and she's not racist anymore. It's like, God, if that worked, I would push so many people. Saw that video of that white lady that got a ticket and it's like no, and so she's end up getting tased.
Yeah.
I don't care how this makes me sound. I watched that, you know, where it says replay and there's that little button in the middle of the video when it's over. I'm like, let's go bring that beat back.
Oh, well, thank you very much, folks. I gotta let you both go, but I appreciate your time as always, both you, and thank you. Yeah, this will be up at the end of the week, so
cool, man.
We will post soon for what, Dead Ringers?
Dead Ringers is, that's the Cronenberg one for August, is Dead Ringers. That'll be near the end of the month. Next week I've got Glenn and Lamont for Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and then we're doing Cool World, and then we're doing Tron because I wanted to do a live action animated, and then September is Goldblum month. We're doing Vibes, so
I love Vibes.
I will make sure we can get you on the episode for that one, Don, at least. So
I'm a terrible person, but I love that movie.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do Vibes. If I got it written down correctly, Vibes, Transylvania 65000.
Oh shit!
We're gonna talk about that one, and then
Earth Girls Are Easy.
Yes, Earth Girls Are Easy. Actually,
fuck, man. Oh, awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, folks. I will talk to you later.
Bye.
See you later. Good night.